speaker. Our next speaker, as you all know, is Lalita Raman. Lalita works with C-suite and senior leaders when they step into a new role, and when they're critical, they have a critical project, or if there is a competency gap, when they engage a new team, when they face new challenges, or informal transitions. So she, she's an executive coach, and again, I would say very accomplished. And if you want to know more, definitely, in fact, we should all link up with each other on LinkedIn so that we really get to know the expertise of all our speakers and SHEmantrans. So today's topic for 1 second, please give me a moment. Sorry about this. Lalita's topic is you can empower your transition. She lives transition, she breathes transition, and she coaches people on transition. So, and she's been a TEDx speaker and many other accomplishments. Lalita, if I've missed out something, please go ahead and add it. And the floor is yours. We invite you here.
Thank you so much, Smriti, and thank you to all of you for attending. And I think you've done more than enough justice in introducing me, Smriti, in a lovely way. Thank you. So, do we all like change? And I can't see you all because most of you have your cameras off. But do we like change? I mean, I can imagine some of you probably saying, yeah, somebody's saying no. Some people probably are saying, yeah, I guess it depends. Well, not really, sometimes, yes. So let's try something out. Let's go with the flow and see how do we deal with change. Let's cross our arms, and I'm raising my hands just to show nothing, no hidden agendas, but just let's cross our arms the habitual, usual way. And I'm sure you are doing it behind your camera. So that feels nice, easy, and comfortable. That's great. Now let's unfold and fold the non-habitual way. So our habitual way may be left over right, which is in my case, that's the case. And the non-habitual way for me is right over left. So some of you may have it the same way. Some of you may have it the other way around. How does that feel? Awkward? Uncomfortable? Gee, weird? Maybe a bit of all of that. Why is there a discomfort? Why is it uncomfortable? Because we are creatures of habit. We aren't able to deal with change that is so small. And, building on what, not that it's connected, but building on the CIA that Deep mentioned, change for all of us, depending on the type of change, creates uncertainty. And the journey into the unknown, which again, many of us, or maybe all of us have experienced at different times in our life, it adds to our fear. And when there is fear, the brain, especially the emotional part of the brain, basically perceives that as a threat. The beauty is this perceived threat, not the real threat, but the perceived threat by our brain is 5 times larger than what it perceives as a reward. And stepping out of our comfort zone, so the crossing is stepping, it is uncomfortable, right? And stepping out of our comfort zone at various times in our life is one such change which creates discomfort. So why am I standing in front of you? And what have I done as an agent of change to transition to a part of who I am now? So let's rewind. 30 years back, long time back. Me, I come from a conservative family. I was young, shy, dreamt of working on the trading floor of a foreign bank. And that foreign bank happened to be Citi. So after about 1.5 years to about 2 years in Citi, Mumbai, Citi gave me a wonderful opportunity to work in Hong Kong. And I looked at the role and I was like, yes, this is it. Let me go for it. And I took up that role. My first day on the job for something I was looking forward to was a shock in terms of culture. I had never gotten out of Bombay. I'd never lived in a boarding school, in a hostel, nothing. I was always with my parents. So it was from home right all the way to Hong Kong. And I barely spoke those days. And I definitely shied away from speaking in meetings and in public. I rarely had the courage to voice out my opinion in meetings, especially when my view differed from the view of the lead person in the meeting. I was also, more times than not, the only woman in the department I was working in. I feel there are key moments in each of our lives that leads us to confront our fear, to face it, overcome it, and really pull the whole barriers that we face down, or what we call as our uncomfortable zone. For me, one such significant moment was 17 years ago, when I took on a bigger role at a new bank, which involved building a revenue-making business in a short span of time. Now, I knew I was comfortable in getting the initial commissions because I had existing client relationships, getting to know the operational processes, legal documentation. It was easy for me. However, you all must know that building a business meant looking at the entire food chain. And therefore, that also involved interacting with people who were from different cultures, who had different personalities, different styles, different ways of talking. And of course, there was a lot of judgment and evaluation that went on with the way people spoke. And I was extremely uncomfortable with all of those. So things that were out of my comfort zone those days, exactly what I'm doing now, public speaking. Oh yeah, a biggest fear of mine. Second, calling a spade, no problem whatsoever. Yet, calling a spade and framing it in a way that it landed on the audience in a way that is acceptable to them, that is felt, you know what, yeah, I can engage in this, was a challenge for me. It was also about building my own internal credibility, appearing confident without actually faking it to make it, because I'm one person who doesn't believe in fake it till I make it. So I had to work really, really hard, and slowly but surely, I worked on these challenges and overcame them. And for me, the biggest breakthrough, when I was able to, the bank that I had joined had a lot of operational problems. And I had to present to senior management in terms of what were the risks, how are we going to get over it, what are we going to stop so that we can increase our market share and have a revenue growing business. I was nervous and yet I did it. And for me, it was a big breakthrough. I was also able to speak to senior traders whose manner of communication and behaviors were typically, at least I considered, aggressive. And that aggression had put me in a fight, flight, or fear zone in the past. But I had gotten to a stage where I was confident, where I was able to engage with them, and they in turn engage with me. Now, did all of this happen overnight? I wish. Nah, not at all. But that's enough of my story. What I would really like to give something or leave something with all of you, and some of you may be familiar with this, is how do we step out of our comfort zone when things seem like you're on uphill, and leave you with 3 key points of how do we do this, which you can use as coaches and facilitators for your clients, as well as in our own lives, because sometimes just as doctors are the worst patients, I think sometimes as coaches and facilitators, we probably are hiding under that saying, I cannot do this. And I'll come to my story with what happened with Neeraja after the talk. So what are these tools? Stepping out of comfort zone, something we hear pretty much from our mentors, from our coaches, family, friends, and whoever wants to support us. So it's nothing new. But think about this for a moment. Now, some of you may be thinking, hey, you know what? I'm very happy with where I am in my life, and I am not interested in making any more changes. I'm done. Take a moment to reflect. If you had not made changes and stepped out of your comfort zone, would you be where you are? Absolutely not. So the fact is, acknowledge that you have stepped out of your comfort zone many times. You may not be recognizing that and appreciating it in yourself, but you have done it, and you've done it well. And that's why you are where you are today. And we, as facilitators of change, need to walk our talk before we expect someone else to change. So the first step, what I did for myself, was asking, what is the worst that can happen? Like literally, what is the worst that can happen? I wrote it all down. I studied it. I dwelled on it and thought about how can I mitigate it? Now, the philosopher Bertrand Russell had a very good thought process on this, which is he basically says that the proper course of action to deal with our fear is basically to think about it rationally and calmly. So manage the emotional part of the brain, get this CIA or the PFC, prefrontal cortex, really in charge, and think about it rationally and calmly. And do that with focus, with concentration, and with attention. And it becomes so much of a routine that you are able to just go ahead and do it without even, it becomes your second nature. I had the fear of public speaking. So what did I do? And as we all know, when it comes to fear, there is an imaginary fear and there's a real fear. So I sat down and I said, okay, what's my real fear? What's my imaginary fear? Control, Alt, delete the imaginary fear. It took time, but I managed to do that. And then the real fear. With respect to mitigating my real fear, overcoming that challenge, I watched TED Talks. I had my own coach who made me enhance my strengths and get over my gaps in order to make impactful presentation. I read a lot of books. And then finally, you know, as a Nike ad puts, just do it. I went and did it. Was I fearful? Oh my God, oh yes, because I was the worst critic of myself. Oh my God, I'll fail, I'll forget, I will trip literally and metaphorically. Those were my actual fears. But I went and did it. Was it great? Actually, on hindsight, for the first time around, doing it in a public of 50 people, I think I did quite a good job. There are a lot of things I could do better. And that brings on to the next point. We all have our expectations, and some of us have very high expectations of ourselves. So when things don't go as per our expectations, what do? Oh my God, I suck at it. I'm useless. I could do better. Blah, 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 blah. All of that happens. Many of us, especially with high expectations, that's constant. Which brings on to my second point, which is self-reflect. It may seem a little hunky-dory, but I think in this crowd, all of you know what I mean by self-reflect. Now, as I mentioned, I was the only woman in many times. And even today, being an Indian woman gets me, I'm not inclusive. I'm not I'm not made to feel inclusive in many circumstances. And that affects my self-confidence. Now, the thing about self-confidence is, therefore, we don't believe in ourselves. And when we don't believe in ourselves, what we say and how we say it is not aligned. And therefore, what happens? The self-confidence goes even lower. Our credibility goes lower. Our reputation goes lower. And it becomes a vicious circle. So if we're really desperate to get what we want, we are really passionate about our outcome, There's only one way: believe in yourself. How did I do it? I wrote down, literally write down, what are the things, what are the challenges I've overcome? What are the defining moments in my life? What have I done to achieve that? Write it down, maybe once a day, once a week, once a month, or maybe once every fortnight, whatever helps you. And you will then see that, hey, this is actual proof of what I have done, and it's not, pardon my language, it's not bullshit. It will also serve another purpose. It will serve as your great CV, where you've built your skills. And the third and final point, what is your motivation level to get the desired outcome? On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, 1 being the lowest. And for me, if it's anything 8 or above, and I'm a very driven person, no matter what, I achieve it. And I'm sure for many of you and your clients, that's probably the case. So to summarize, 3 points. What's the worst that can happen? See how you can mitigate and get over from the worst case scenario. Reflect, build on what you have done well, not what you have done badly, what you've done well. What can you do different? And third, essentially, figure out how can you motivate yourself? What is the why that you want to really do it? We are creatures of habit. And even though it takes time, when we believe in ourselves, we are able to make the change that we want. Thank you.
Lovely. If you look on the chats, Lalita, you will see compliments flowing for you all throughout, and so nice to be reminded that courage is not the lack of fear. It is acting in spite of it, and also the assessment that something is more important than fear. That's what you told us, and that's how I would like to summarize it. Absolutely awesome, powerful, the lovely emotive ability, and and the fact that you're standing and talking, that were you standing? Yeah, that teaches us something that when I'm going to remember that when I do mine. So thank you for that.